Hello, thanks, Eric. Hi, everyone. I'm Susan Price, a product manager at Capital One, and I'm joined by my colleagues, Jake and Gaurav. Let's go ahead and get started. All right. So imagine your local library filled with a ton of books, not organized in any meaningful way, and no system to find what you are looking for. Well, it would take you a while to find a specific book. And when you stumbled upon it, if you ever did, you wouldn't know if it's the latest edition. And if you're an author, you wouldn't know where to put your books in this library so that your readers would easily find and read them. Well, that is what it can be like at large-scale organizations with complex data ecosystems that have grown without guardrails and governance. All data consumers want to do is find data and build experiences for customers. And all producers want to do is publish their data so that consumers will find and use it. Without a holistic solution, data consumers may spend a lot of time looking for data. They may struggle with inconsistent integrations, and they may have to do their own legwork to validate the quality of the data. And your data producers may not have a centralized place or platform to share their data in a governed way. We saw a way to solve this, and my colleagues and I are here to tell you about our journey to transform Capital One Data Marketplace using a product mindset and Apollo. There you go.
Thanks, Susan. All right, so we are talking about a challenging data marketplace. Let's dive a little bit deeper and talk about some aspects of a data marketplace like this. So in such a marketplace, potentially we could have data that's arbitrarily unique. Along the way, people made different decisions about how to format the exact same data, and no one's really sure why they did it the way they did it at the time they did it, but now you have variance. The same data could also be duplicative. You could have the same data in different sources, databases, APIs, what have you, that represents the exact same thing, either in its entirety or a subset. Consumers of this data won't know how to get the data they need and how to sync up exactly what they need when there's an update. Data could be unavailable in one of these situations. So if your REST APIs have downtime or maintenance, or what you're asking for just isn't available, it can be really challenging. And finally, the schemas can be opaque. The discoverability could be low. You could want data or kind of know what type of data you want, but not really, and you won't know how to get it in this kind of marketplace. So how do we remedy these challenges? Spoiler, this is maybe the only talk not about AI. So we're going to go into old school stuff. Standardization and accessibility. These are two aspects that we leveraged to help remove some of these challenges. So starting with standardization, when you take data, you standardize it, you give it structure, you make it predictable, you make it intuitive, and you make accessing and using that data routine. Additionally, when you make data accessible and you make it clear where to get what you need, how to get what you need, and make sure that it is reliably there when you need it, these two concepts in concert take a data marketplace from a source to the source of truth. If you are managing one of these marketplaces, you don't want your consumers to go all over the place looking for data. You want to make it easy for them. So when you have a lot of data that's standardized and accessible, you could have it still in lots of different places, even if you've done these aspects. So if only there was some kind of orchestration technology that would be great at taking data across many places and putting it into a centralized, consumable location. Gaurav's going to talk about how we did this with GraphQL.
Thanks, Jake. So GraphQL as a query language has been there for a very long time, and so are the REST APIs. And if you think about it, like we have so much proliferation of REST APIs across the enterprises, like all over the place. At the same time, there's a very popular concept in the industry, which is microservices, with growth of microservices, more and more microservices coming in the industry, the data producers are becoming granular and granular. So what it has done is it produces a very, very scalable enterprise scale solutions, but at the same time, it became a complex thing to solve by the consumers of the data. There's a heavy orchestration happening, and they have to do a lot of like domain-specific work with the data producers to actually consume the data. And we'll take a moment to understand this picture. This is a very generic picture of an enterprise. And what it looks like is you mostly have a bunch of like consumer-facing applications. They are supported by BFFs in the background. And then you have many platforms which are sitting at the back doing the hard work. And what these platforms are doing is they're doing like a couple of 3 to 4 things. They are actually building logic and capabilities for the consumer experiences. At the same time, they are doing the heavy lift of data orchestration and figuring out where to find the right data. So for a moment, if you look at the last layer, imagine there's no pink circle over there at the moment. At the last layer, you will have a bunch of these microservices, a lot of them which are actually producing the data. They are system of records. So what we thought about, okay, so at our place in Capital One, what came up was there was a use case, there's a platform who wanted to do this heavy orchestration, and for the sake of this presentation, we are calling it a knowledge platform. They wanted to do a heavy orchestration, and they wanted standard data. They did not want to figure out like, is it the system of record data, it's a duplicate, or it's a cache. So that was the use case that was presented to us. So what we did is, as a group, we created this central framework. We collected these GraphQL SMEs in the company to build this central framework, build in Capital One specific or company specific standards, produce whatever is best practices in this central framework, and offload this hard orchestration of the data of this knowledge platform and basically do the hard work of the orchestration. Apart from that, that's not the only story. The bigger challenge was standardizing the data. So a lot of effort went into how we can be standard about our data. If I'm getting a book author or reviews, is it a clone? Is it a copy or a cache? Or it's coming from, it's authoritative. So a lot of work was done on making it standard and at the same time simplifying orchestration. So we brought in GraphQL as a querying function or framework in between, which was doing all the orchestration. And what happened, it was a huge success. So we were able to solve this complex problem, allow this platform to work on the business functionality they were supposed to do, and at the same time, this central framework is doing all the heavy lifting. And we did not build this just from the scratch, because if you look at it, like we have a very good understanding of digital asset marketplace already in the company from almost a decade, and we just tried to piggyback on the success of that platform. So what came out of this is a thought process that this is not something like a point solution, but this is something that everybody needs in the company. And to think about the problem, the moment we think about reuse and all those things, we think about a problem as a platform, as a product. So we take a step back, we look at went back and look at this problem as who are the consumers of this data, who are the customers of the platform, what will be the use cases, and it boils down to these 3 fundamentals right on the screen. So you can break this into data consumers. Consumers are the applications or platforms in the company who want this data. Then there are data producers who are producing the system of record data, which is they want you to use their data, not like a copy of the data. And then apart from that, the third is the platform themselves. Like you want to be a platform for platforms. Like this layer, which we are thinking through, is not just serving the direct customer, it is also serving the platforms. So going into the next iteration, we were very sure that this is something that we need to build a platform, and this is how the groundwork need to be laid down. And we looked into the tech stack. So the moment we were sure, okay, this need to be a platform reused across the company, is the tech stack good enough? So we looked around, like, what are the orchestration technologies and all those things, and we definitely landed on this Apollo GraphQL specification, which is federation specification. And we looked at all the implementation of the spec, and we landed, at the moment, Apollo open source router was the best fit, and having all the features which is covered in the specification, all what we need. Along with this, we also looked into the developer toolings like Rover CLI and all other dev tools we need to build this and provide to the customers. Now, coming into from the book or the paper, the thought which was on the paper to the real implementation, we have a couple of challenges in front of us. So first of all, we already solved the problem for the knowledge platform, and it was hard to sell the value gain if we introduce this MVP implementation for them. So we have to do in some of a smart manner, and if you think about it, the moment in an enterprise you introduce a hop, there's a challenge. Like, people ask the question, will it introduce latency? And where we are standing, our team stands over there. We are kind of a central platform who are good if we are invisible. The moment we show up on the latency chart, it's not good. So we have to pick something which is very, very high throughput and low latency, even with the hop. So we introduced this supergraph, Apollo supergraph, right in the mix, right into the existing live production solution, and made it run in parallel. So we started by a very well-known, like we all know about it, we started trickling some of the traffic to this new platform, to the new supergraph, and we produced these good, rich dashboard for our customers to review and evaluate apples to apples that this works. And this is just the runtime. Along with this, we also invested in upgrading or introducing new features that are needed specifically for GraphQL Federation. So we had this existing digital asset marketplace, so we introduced these additional features for publishing the graph, for governing the graph, and managing and find and use. And let me take a moment for these like 5 pillars, which I just talked about: publish, manage, find, use, and govern. So whenever we are thinking about a data marketplace, we have to think in this framework. So we have this concept of publishing the data and managing the data. That's mostly for the data producers who want to produce the data. Then we have this concept of finding and use. These are mostly our consumers of the data who want to consume this authoritative data. And then sitting across all of these pillars is the governance pillar, which is making sure that we govern the data, govern the marketplace, produce all the right checkpoints to evolve in a very responsible manner in the company. So having said that, we were able to prove, like very evidence-based approach, we were able to prove how we can introduce this MVP platform with a supergraph without adding any significant latencies, but having much more future growth and scalability on the platform. So back to Jake, walk to what happened next.
Thanks, Gaurav. So we have an MVP of a platform. The talk is about a product mindset. So I want to go backwards a little bit to how we introduced this product mindset from day one. And from the beginning, observability became paramount. We knew that if we put ourselves in the shoes of our customers, producers, consumers, and people that enabled use cases, that observability was going to be the thing that we needed to really focus on. So what we wanted to do was sort of construct a glass house. I wanted to be able to see all of the water going through the pipes, all of the wiring, all the different things in the house at once, so I could preemptively respond to issues before they became an issue for our customers. This transparency gave us and our customers confidence to use the system and understand exactly what's going on inside of it. So we had an MVP foundation. We were concerned about observability. We were building for the future. Our foundation was laid by a lot of open source tooling that Gaurav mentioned. Schema composition, open source router. It was good. It was working. It was solving use cases. But this was a distributed system with coordinated responsibility. And you work better in a distributed system when you have structure to understand what is a safe path to take, what is a potentially unsafe path to take. So what we did was we built our walls of responsibility a little bit higher to give everyone the confidence that if we laid the right path, you could go down that path and understand that what you're doing made sense and would be better to solve your use cases. So with observability and this additional rigor, we developed a little bit better than an MVP of a platform. And so Gaurav's going to go back and talk a little bit about how this evolution happened and what benefits we saw.
All right, back to our existing diagram. So we started with the point solution, introduced the MVP, and here we are, everything is green, like who don't love green? So we came out of it and with a lot of learning. The most important thing we learned is how we can be fast in publishing changes. The second is how we can provide these automated governances and kind of a fast pass for things we already can govern by automation. So in current state, what we introduced is we expanded on this standardized data marketplace. And we introduced this end-to-end GraphQL schema management, which can take you from the point of submission of a change to a production release in a very well-managed manner. And all the checkpoints is dynamically and do the analysis on what approvals are needed. So there is a lot of governance going on, but in a very fast manner. So this brings to the point where you can bring in more and more customers on the platform where they will not be impeded, and they want to love it. What happened from our previous way, the way we handled our MVP platform, the word got out, and we did not have to sell this. Like if you look at it, we have more and more platforms coming to us to join the journey, and they were because we solved the blockers like publishing and governance and made sure provide a very transparent experience of how a change is moved, how the deprecation is done, everything is done. It was very easy sell, and we can see the growth now when we are getting more and more platforms to offload this concept of orchestration, getting the standard data, getting authoritative data, while these platforms can focus on the cool stuff. I know we said we did not say AI, but the cool AI stuff, and we can leave all the data orchestration. A lot of like core orchestration of the data to this platform, and in a very well managed way. And so that's about it. Over to you, Jake.
All right, thanks again, Gaurav. Did we get there? Okay, we got there. All right, so we have observability, insights, we have more than MVP, we have a system that people are using, we have structure, we have governance, we have all of the things that we've been talking about in our system now. And what we found, and what someone who would spend the same kinds of time could find, is an increase in velocity. Because we spent the time paving the path to make the obvious choice the right one, we accelerated everybody. The patterns that we had imposed helped keep everybody in the same lane, and it really worked out well. So everyone loves stats. Here's the stats slide, especially when you do less with more, or more with less, rather, and you get to cut down on tools. So if you were to invest in the ways that we invested, a similar data marketplace could experience these same stats. You might see a 50% reduction in schema composition, proposal, and deployment steps. During that, since you've cut down the amount of steps, you probably need about half as many communication tools. Your chats and your documents and your tracking systems, all of that can be condensed because you have spent time building a visible system that people can use with confidence. And along the same lines, you could have up to 3 times fewer cooks in the kitchen. Less back and forth, fewer debates about getting something out to production, which is really what we care about. Take it all together, and you could see around a 300% deployment velocity for your platform. This means that people can produce and ship meaningful features, get the data they need in a way that enables faster use cases for everyone. So we found that investing in these ways really made a big difference. And if you were to take some amount of information from this talk, it's that kind of unintuitively, as you lay a bunch of structure and foundation, you actually could get speed and not just impediments. So Susan's going to talk about all the things that we learned along this process and what's coming next.
Thanks, Jake. Okay. So we're listening to our data community about what's most important to them, and we're taking those learnings and iterating on the Enterprise GraphQL platform in these ways. So first, schema generation. We learned our schema generation tooling had become overloaded with responsibilities that didn't make sense for it to own. It was adding custom directives to schemas that ultimately weren't required to ship that schema to the supergraph. And keeping the schema generation tooling up to date and in line with the ever-changing custom directives meant that sometimes our customers faced errors. So how we are iterating on this learning, we are dropping the complexity out of the schema generation tooling by dropping the necessary custom directives and improving error handling so that our customers can self-resolve issues during schema generation. And next is observability. We learned our data producers, after they submit a change, they want to know when their change will be in QA and prod. They want to know who's accountable for the next step, and they want to know that reviews are happening within given SLAs. And how we're iterating on this learning is we're building a schema observability dashboard for everyone that charts out a schema's journey through the approval workflows, from schema generation to subgraph management to supergraph deployment. Kind of like a progress bar, showing the schema journey on its way to production. And next is expediency. We learned from our data producers that they're concerned about their schema changes stalling because an approver is out of town or in meetings all day. And this becomes even more critical as we scale. In the past couple of months, the number of changes proposed against all of our subgraphs have quadrupled, and the number of supergraph QA and prod deployments have tripled. Schema changes must be able to move quickly through our governance workflows. And how we're iterating on this learning is we are expanding the number of authorized approvers to include everyone on the subgraph owning team. We're empowering more accountable owners to take action while still maintaining a governed workflow. And lastly, emergent needs. We learned that our data producers want to expedite high priority schema changes through the workflows. They essentially want to cut the line with high priority schema changes past any that may have already gotten there first. So how we are iterating on this is we're building a capability for our supergraph owners that allows them to cherry pick approved schema changes to take to QA and prod as soon as they need to, regardless of any others that may have gotten there first. So these are most important learnings from this year that we're using to iterate and improve our Enterprise GraphQL platform. Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, walking you through how we transformed the Capital One data marketplace with a product mindset. And if there's one thing we want you to walk away with, it is this: you can only achieve scalable, reliable data access when you treat Graph as a platform and embed governance in the workflows. So what does this look like in practice? Well, it boils down to 3 core principles we encourage you to adopt. The first is apply the product mindset. This means you're responsible for the user experience for both the consumers and the producers. If it's difficult to publish quality data, your producers will fail. If it's difficult to find and use data, your consumers will find workarounds. Your job is to make the right thing the easy thing. And next, embed governance to scale. Governance cannot be an afterthought. Instead, embed it directly into your workflows. Orchestrated approvals, automated schema quality checks, and clear feedback. And third, design for inevitable change. Your data landscape will evolve, and your graph design must be composable to support safe, non-breaking evolution. In this way, you create an enduring asset instead of a fragile one. We realize this may seem like a daunting shift, and our advice is simple. Start small. Identify a high-demand, a high-value data set in your organization and apply the product manager's lens to its life cycle from creation to consumption. Talk to the producers and talk to the consumers and ask, what are the friction points? Thank you, everyone, for your time. We hope our experience at Capital One provides you with practical strategies to help you transform your data marketplace and turn a complex data ecosystem into an enduring asset. And we will be in the back if any of you have any questions for us. Come find us. Thank you.